I'm going to try to simplify the discussion about Book of Mormon Geography, particularly the Hill Cumorah, by using these three syllogisms. The first one will show the Moroni's America approach, or the Heartland or North American setting. Premise one here, I'm just going to spell it out, but I'll show you how it works. Premise one is that Joseph Smith, Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, Joseph Fielding Smith, Marion G. Romney, other men all said that the Hill Cumorah was in New York, so I called that the New York Cumorah. Premise two here is that Joseph, Oliver, and the others were accurate. They were true. They were correct. We can trust them. We believe what they say. If that's true, and they said that Cumorah was in New York, then the conclusion follows that the New York Cumorah is also true. I'm phrasing all these syllogisms in terms of true and false. So that's basically the discussion or the explanation of how Moroni's America finds the New York Cumorah to be true. Now, by comparison, there's the Mesoamerican approach. Premise one, they agree that Joseph Oliver and the others said that New York Cumorah was the Cumorah was in New York. However, their second premise is that the New York Cumorah is false, and I'm going to explain why using other syllogisms. But for now, just look at this. They say New York Cumorah is false, therefore Joseph Oliver and the rest were also false. Now they use euphemisms such as they were speculating, they were uncertain, they were relying on tradition, and so on. But basically they're saying that what Joseph and Oliver said was false. So I want to compare this in another way just so you can see how that all worked. In both of these cases, the first premise is the same. Joseph Oliver and the others said Cumorah was in New York. The second premise is derived differently, though. In the Moroni's America approach, we take the first part here, Joseph Oliver, etc., and move that down to the second premise 2. The Mesoamerican approach is to take the New York Cumorah and move that down to premise 2. And I'll show you how that works out here. So here again, we're seeing that up top here, I show the premise 1 for both of these is the same. Premise 2 is different, though. For Moroni's America, premise 2 is, again, Joseph Oliver were true. For the Mesoamerican approach, it's that New York Cumorah is false. And I know you get this, but I'm just going to show it one more time. We put this one down to here and said it was true. And then we took the other one, New York Cumorah, down to here, right here, and say it was false. That's basically the different approaches to the first premise that each of these approaches take. So let me clear this. We'll move to the next slide here so that you can see how we reach the conclusions. The conclusion of Moroni's America is Cumorah is true. The conclusion of Mesoamerica is Joseph and the others are false. All right, now let's move on to the next one. This is syllogism B. And the premise 1 is that the hemispheric model is false. Let me just explain briefly what that is. That's the idea that the Book of Mormon narrative describes all of the Americas, North and South America, from southern Argentina to northern Canada, the hemispheric model. Mesoamerican scholars think that one's false, but they also, their second premise is that the hemispheric model is the same as the New York Cumorah. In other words, in the early days of the church, the people who believed that Cumorah was in New York also adopted this hemispheric model. In that case, the conclusion would be that New York Cumorah is false. In other words, if the hemispheric model is false, the hemispheric model is the same as the New York Cumorah, then the New York Cumorah has to be false. Looking at that same syllogism, or similar syllogism from the Moroni's America approach, the Moroni's America also agrees that the hemispheric model is false. We don't think the Book of Mormon took place over the entire North and South America. However, we don't agree that the New York Cumorah is the same as the hemispheric model, so I indicate that here by circling this, or using this does not equal symbol. What that means is the New York Cumorah is not the same, or is not required by the hemispheric model. That leads to the conclusion that the New York Cumorah can be true. Now, technically, you could say that just because hemispheric model is false doesn't mean New York Cumorah is true. It could also be false, but I'm trying to simplify this now, and this is the approach that the North American model takes. All right, the next one, syllogism C, is that the Meso model is not the same as the New York Cumorah. And the theory behind that is that New York is too far away from Mesoamerica for Cumorah to be in New York if the Mesoamerican model is true. So they're not equal. However, the second premise is that the Meso model is true. Therefore, it follows that the New York Cumorah is false, using this syllogism C, the Mesoamerican approach. So very quickly, how the Mormonized America looks at it, we think that we agree with the idea that the Meso model is incompatible or different from New York Cumorah. However, the second premise is that the New York Cumorah is true, as we saw in the first syllogism. What that leads to is the conclusion that the Meso model is false. So those are three syllogisms, real easy to follow. Hopefully they're accurate portrayals or summaries of the different approaches, and that may clarify the issues, help you all to understand how the different sides view the issue.